Hello, this is the voice of Stewart Pearce, and welcome to Deep Dialogues, a series of vital conversations that I have with global soul stewards from all over the world who provide us with an understanding of how we can create a new hierarchy of values that is absolutely significant at this unique time of becoming. I hope you enjoy, and thanks for listening. Welcome, everybody. It always gives me the satisfaction of saying welcome, but I always feel like the MC at the beginning of cabaret, and that I should really dance into willkommen, bienvenue, welcome. And so, everybody, welcome to this unique, deep dialogue with the wonderful Sheila Gillette, who you see sitting in front of. I hope you all comment on the fact that we could be brother and sister, because I've always felt this immense rapport with Sheila, and the very fact that we have short white hair, I always think is really, really very redeeming. So welcome, everybody. And Sheila, our special guest, thank you for being here. You're such a wonderful witness to the extraordinary ability to unite in unity consciousness through the all the intelligence of spirit. So I'm just so thrilled that you're here.
Well, I just welcome so much this invitation to be here with you, Stewart. It's really a gift you've given me to be a part of your dialogues and to share with your audience the wisdom of Theo and the wisdom that I've gained over the years that I've done this work, and our friendship. And I'm so looking forward to this dialogue.
Bless you. Thank you. Thank you. So, as usual, what I'd love to do is just formally introduce you to everybody who may not know you. So, Sheila is a very remarkable channel. In 1969, she almost died whilst giving birth to her third child. And post-recovery, she began to experience a volume of psychic phenomena, which eventually led her to be the channel for a communion of 12 angelic beings of light, known as Theo. Theo speaks with one voice and has assisted thousands and thousands of people. And notably, Sheila was called upon by Esther Hicks as she herself began to channel the highly renowned teachings of Abraham. Paramount to Theo's teaching is the power of soul integration as an authentic path to wholeness and to what we conceive of as enlightenment. Theo directly guides the individual and collective consciousness through the challenges that are faced at this time of the great shift. Now, for over 40 years, Sheila has appeared on radio, television, and to live audiences, sharing the inimitable essence of Theo's teachings, whilst also authoring several books: The Fifth Dimension, Channels to a New Reality, and The Soul Truth, A Guide to Inner Peace, which was co-authored with her husband, Marcus. And indeed, just to bring in, you're actually publishing a new book in the fall of 2021. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. And it's called The Art of Relationship.
Wow. So we'll all be queuing up for one of these copies, and hopefully eventually we'll be in Sheila's presence where she can actually sign her monogram. So I will be introducing you to her website later. Good evening, Jackie, Crypto Guru, Frederick, Stacy, Jennifer, Gail, Sarah, Robin, all of you, all the wonderful people that are tuning in. So yes, I'll be talking about Sheila's multimedia website and international community, which is sharing the wisdom of the angelic hierarchy to assist humanity as we aspire to higher and higher levels of consciousness, the substance of which I know that Sheila will be revealing as we go through this extraordinary process. So, darling, that awakening in '69 was an extraordinary near-death experience. Is that true? Ah, I seem to have lost you. That's strange. What's happened? Are you there? Are you there? Can you hear me? Ah, I've lost you. Unfortunately, your sound has gone again. How strange. Maybe your audio has suddenly wavered. Ryan, is everything working as far as we're concerned? Sorry, everybody. Are you back? No, still can't hear Sheila.
Hi, Stuart. It's Ryan.
Can you?
I'm assuming Sheila can still hear us.
I
Her mic was muted. Yes, thank you.
Yes, I just saw that. I apologize. I didn't see it. Oh.
Okay, so that gave our audience a moment to reflect on. I wonder what an NDE is. And there was Sheila giving birth to her third child, moving into a near-death experience. So.
Yes, and at that time I had pulmonary embolus, which was my lungs not being functional because of blood clots that went into the lungs after the birth. And so I was in intensive care and I could not breathe. I felt as if I had an elephant sitting on my chest. And I said, hey, God, give me a job. I'll do anything. And I just kept repeating that. And I wouldn't go to sleep because I knew if I closed my eyes, I wouldn't open them again. And my family was being prepared that I wouldn't live through the day. And, this whole pandemic thing has brought this back to the forefront because of the lung situation and what people are going through. So I totally can relate to that. But at the time I was in intensive care, I just kept repeating that. I'll do anything. I had a brand new baby, had 2 little tiny kids at home. And the little cubicle in intensive care got extremely bright, as if the sun had risen in the room itself. And I saw movement at the end of my bed. And when I looked, Jesus was standing at the end of my bed. And I was a little taken back, as you can imagine. And he took his arms and he folded them inside. He crossed them like this. And when he did so, I heard in my inner mind hearing, not external as we hear each other, but inside, like my own thoughts, I heard a male voice say, remember, my child, you are loved. And then I was mesmerized by his beautiful green eyes. And he smiled. And when he smiled, I felt as if my crown had opened up, and that I liken it to warm honey being poured in, because it just felt like this warmth started seeping down through my entire body. And as it went through the trunk of my body, I felt as if I could take a deep breath. And I started getting better, and the doctors were amazed. And 6 months after I got out of the hospital, I started having all kinds of psychic phenomena happening through me, around me. I could hear the messages as I heard Jesus's voice. I could do automatic writing. I could move objects. I could look at them and move them with my mind. And different psychic things that I could do. And some of it a little frightening. And my bed levitated in the middle of the night, and it's some real phenomena. But I kept going because I knew that's the commitment I made. And I knew I was okay, because back then I didn't know anybody doing what I was doing. And then I spontaneously, and this direct voice mediumship started that way, beginning in that way. And at that time, I was described as a deep trance medium, direct voice medium, because the word channeling hadn't been adopted for this type of work. Then that's how long ago it was. And it's been just tremendous opportunity of my own spiritual growth, but the ability to share the wisdom of Theo, who are the 12 archangels that speak directly through me with the world.
Just to retrace what you were sharing with us, during those moments unusual phenomena. One of which, as you said, was your bed was levitating, which I remember experiencing very acutely in the late 80s when I met the Angels of Atlantis, but unusual phenomena similarly. And you expressed that this unusualness brought about a degree of fear. What allowed you to transcend the fear?
It was interesting because Spirit, the angels, kept reassuring me,
Right.
because I have such an analytical mind. I was like, am I doing this, or is this real? You know, so I had to have these extraordinary things happening to trust and believe it. But it was so unusual, you know, and I didn't have anybody to really talk to about it.
Yeah.
Because people weren't openly talking about spiritual things that, you know, it was a taboo subject. And many people today, depending on where they live in the world, don't feel the freedom of that discussion, but 100 or 1,000 times that back then, because I didn't go into social situations, go, guess what I can do? Because people would have been frightened, or they wouldn't have understood. Let me put it that way. Many would not, but there were those that were opening up. And, you know, somebody suggested that I get a book on Edgar Cayce, and that was tremendous for me, because what was happening to me was what had happened to him.
Yes.
And it really gave me some relief. And then I got an invitation to be a participant at the University of Miami Psychics and Scientists event, which I didn't understand how I would have gotten that invitation, but I know Spirit delivered it. And then I met some physicists, some scientists that were studying parapsychology and metaphysics, and they asked us to study me to test my ability, which I did readily, because I wanted to know what was going on with me. And here were these scientists that could verify me or validate me. And it was just kind of like getting the good housekeeping seal of approval that you're not a crazy person, you're psychic. And so I've been offered these opportunities that have just manifested for me perfectly to say yes to continue doing this work and being affirmed by it.
And when did you feel the crystallization of Theo come through? When did the name Theo come to you?
Early on, when I first started the trance mediumship, an entity called Orlos was the spokesman, very soft-spoken and very kind, and said that they were there to work with my energy so that I could receive higher teachers. And that was for a couple of years. And I was doing an event with a small group of people in Seattle, Washington, and Orlos said, "We are leaving now. The higher teachers are here." And Theo came in, very robust, very loud, and at that point in time said, "We are 12 archangels and will be collectively known by the name Theo." They said they would not identify singularly because the message was of importance and they didn't want any distraction from who the messenger was.
Extraordinary, isn't it? And you know, I'm reminded of the fact that the name Leo is of Greek derivation and means God.
Yes. Oh, funny story. You know, when Theo comes in, they say, "This is the beginning, is it not?" That's how they start every session. That's how they begin the first one. And they told me to look Theo up in the dictionary, and as you stated, it means God, but it's also, it says, the beginning or God. And so, you know, I kept thinking, well, why don't they come in and say, "Hi, this is Theo," or, you know, they're just. It took me a few years to realize that's exactly what they're doing when they say this is the beginning, is it not? It tickled my funny bone, let's say, when I realized they are introducing themselves every time.
And the charge that comes forth is so extraordinary that we are altered at the altar of your pronouncement, or Theo's pronouncement. So there is a mechanism energetically whereby we move beyond space and time into the non-local, non-physical, where we feel this is the beginning on each occasion, because after all, there is no significance wrapped around time in the way that our emotional resonances are often caught within time frames or timelines. Absolutely fascinating. Has Theo's voice changed over the years at all?
Yes. As there's been more integration into my physical body and the adaption of using my voice, when they first came in, it was very loud and very more computer-like sounding. And over the years has very much softened to blend more energetically with mine. And it's been a work in progress. There have been these continual vibrational frequency adjustments for the usage of the body even. I was laying, like I said, very much like Edgar Cayce, and they would speak through me and eyes closed. And that I did that for several years. And then I had a cough, and it was very difficult to lay and breathe and talk with that cough. And my assistant said to Theo, is there anything we can do for Sheila? And they said, yes, tell her to sit up. So that was another transition, which I did, and sat eyes closed for years, and them speaking through me. And then several years ago, we were doing an event, and they stood me up. They started using my hands, but they stood me up and opened my eyes, and that was quite interesting. Like I said, it's been just kind of a transformation for me as well. And then when they stood me up, it was I was very still, to the point where they would just stand and my feet would go to sleep. And I thought, well, I can't do this. I mean, this is not good. And but then they started moving the hands and working with people that way. So it's been many, many years, many decades actually, of transformation for me. But I think also it's been a step in my allowance for them to take over and feel comfortable doing that.
And presumably, as you've journeyed through the decades, that the teachings have a gradation about them where they evolve or develop very specifically with the quality you have the changing times? Or do you feel that there is a preconceived or a pre-realized agenda that Theo wishes to produce as you journey?
Yes. They have been speaking about, they've been speaking about this time that we're going through right now for 5 decades. The book, The Fifth Dimension, they spoke about what's happening now and all the changes that are coming. They say that they're here as mentors and teachers for this tremendous consciousness shift that is happening now. And so over the years, there have been, I like your word, gradations of the teaching, because it started out in a very elementary way. That's the best way to describe it. It's like any education. And I believe now they're at the university level of teaching for all of us. And it's been an interesting process, because I have people ask me, well, don't you get bored, because aren't they saying the same? No, they're not saying the same things over and over again. They're saying them differently. The message is the same, but the teachings, they meet us where we are and take us to the next level of understanding. So there's been this whole process of growth that has happened. And it's interesting to me that the people that come to listen to Theo, to participate with Theo, aren't the beginners. They've done some of their own spiritual work. They've done some study. They're opening up. And whether they've done it with Theo or with other people or just on their own, they're ready for that next level of understanding and acceptance. As Theo says, accepting the divinity of what we are, who we are. That's now, really trusting the divine in each and every one of us. And they say not one is greater than the other. So it's leading out of all of these generational and societal patterns that have been passed along for centuries, don't work anymore. And we're birthing a new way of being in the self-acceptance and really self-love. And knowing we're worthy of being that being that we're here to be.
Beautiful, beautiful. And the allowability is very remarkable when you speak of the level of experience or the level of intelligence of the people that are called to Theo, that there is a degree of allowability that is different from how, say, it was 20 years ago. Do you feel that obviously what goes with that is a level of acceptance, but also a level of conviction in the people who come, because they have refined questions that they want to ask about how they can radically change their own lives to move more within the unity consciousness of spirit, experiencing that remarkable moment that, for example, you had when the Christ being came to you, which I find remarkable. The words were, "Remember, my child, you are loved." I find that very touching.
It was a bit overwhelming, as you can imagine. And that's been Theo's teaching all along. It's about accepting ourselves fully. And they say that unconditional love is a solid state of being. It's not a feeling. And that's what they're leading us into understanding, that solid state of soul-centeredness. That no matter what challenge we may have in life, because those are just opportunities of growth, we'll stand in that solid state and be able to navigate and do whatever is necessary, because we'll know what to do if we trust in that. And certainly that's been my path, because I've been a student all these years myself, and not without challenge. That's how we grow most. And so learning how to be that soul-centered person is what their teaching is all about. And it's amazing when people come into a mentoring program and experience Theo and their process that they call the soul integration process. And it's multidimensional. It's not just this lifetime. It transforms people. I know it's transformed me.
Could you try again?
That was my iWatch talking back to me.
I'm not sure I understand.
Take it off.
There is such a thing as cosmic humor. Okay, so the last statement was, "I don't think I understand." Okay, so let's go deeper in the definition. That was quite extraordinary. And so you describe the soul-centeredness as a solid state of being where feeling is not apparent. And I guess my interpretation of what you're saying is the fact that the fluctuations of the emotional body cease to be so dramatic. And there is this consistent flow of unconditionality, of this exquisite, serene, the peace that passeth all understanding, of just flowing through. Am I correct in my interpretation?
Yes, you are. And we don't have the emotional extremes. We still have our emotions. That's what we came here to learn.
Yeah.
But when we realize that we are worthy of living the life we want to live, we're not taking away from anybody anything. That we all deserve to live that life well lived. That then there's this sense of peace. Now, people, if you say, what do you want? Well, I want to be happy. Well, happy is relative. It's relative to things, experiences, others. But what they and we really want is to be comfortable in our skin, to feel at peace, no matter what's happening. Like the eye of the hurricane, that calm, no matter what debris swirling around on the outside.
Yeah.
And then we can respond to life rather than react to it.
Yeah. I hear you. And this illuminating truth of finding that stillness, which is interestingly in the flux of our changing nature of being, where we switch on and off day, night, close eyes, open eyes, close eyes, open eyes, with each thought, that there is this consistency or sustainability of the condition of the greatness of what the joy is all about and what the love is all about. And would you agree that this is actually one of the essential keys of fifth dimensionality, that this level of sustainable joy is so full of conviction as a force multiplier that we don't experience the yo-yo effect on an emotional level? Is that something you feel is a key point of fifth dimensionality?
Oh, I absolutely think that. Yes. Yeah. And we're all moving in that direction because we've all chosen to be here. Yeah. Life is not demanded of us. It's a choice. And we choose to incarnate. And as Theo says, there's billions of other choices a soul can make. The earth is only one.
Yeah.
But it's an exquisite choice, and getting more so as we evolve in this consciousness now in the fifth dimension and beyond, really.
And during this past year of global pause, which I refuse to say it's lockdown, because I feel that lockdown is a superimposition that we've been given, and it's produced a great deal of fear. But this global pause, have also been celebrated by Theo in the sense of lots and lots of wonderful transmissions coming through because of the global pause? Because in other words, what I'm referring to is that I know in my own work with these 12 beings of light that work with me, is that when I'm in maximized stillness, when I'm in optimized stillness, that's when the frequencies become really pure and exciting to experience. And so much information comes through. So I was sort of relating to this earlier as I was thinking about the potential of our conversation, and how we can reach into this quantum force of the still point, which has this sustainable degree to it, which is almost ironic because we live our lives so much through flux. And, change is we're part of an infinitely unfolding creative possibility. So change is always going to be present. But the point that you're making is that right at the very center of it is this exquisite stillness. I know that COVID, the period of COVID, has affected you hugely in the sense of the wonderful relish and times of heightened consciousness that you've experienced. I just wonder if Theo had actually brought through any particular ministry about the nature of COVID and how we're now obviously passing out of it.
Well, they've been talking about this time for several decades. And they did in 2019, November of 2019, we asked Theo if they had the message for the new year for 2020. And what they told us is that would be a year beyond anything we can imagine, but it would change the trajectory of all of our lives. And of course, that was before the pandemic happened and the virus and the shutdowns and the pause, as you put it. I like that. But they've been talking about this time of recognizing that we are a global species and that this virus was here to affirm that we are, because it had no boundaries. It didn't discern what color your skin was, what language you spoke, where you lived, where you were born, what religion you have, that it was an equal opportunity for all of us to see the oneness. Because when we talk as spiritual teachers about oneness, people they get it intellectually, but they don't get it in any other way. It's just words. Well, this virus is here to show us how much oneness there is, and that we are all connected and we all want the same things in life. And the beautiful technology of the internet offering us this opportunity, like you and I, to have this discussion that we've had with others throughout this year, and expanding this knowledge globally with each other, is just proving to us that we can know each other. We don't have to live in the same place. We're here right now in this moment, in this time capsule, if you would, sharing this, as many of your listeners are wherever they are in the world, sharing these moments with us. So we're not limited to time and space. And that's what the fifth dimension is about. And that's what we're getting. And that knowing we're a global economy, knowing they said that the political structures throughout the world will be changing, and we're witnessing that. But they did say the scientists and sciences and arts will bring us together. It's not political. It will be how we collaborate rather than separate. Because we're a collaborative species, truly. We're not competitive. We're better together than we are apart. So I think this is all the lessons that will be coming forth now. And new innovations are coming from this time, because the old things aren't working. We can see that truly in businesses that don't work anymore, and different ways that we interact with energy. It's all changing, and we're all a part of it. We don't have to be afraid. It's exciting to me.
Beautiful, beautiful. And as we know, many people have lived through a critical series of degrees because of their lives being threatened, or their earth circumstances being threatened. And so we send lots and lots of love to them in their journey, recognizing that crisis equals opportunity. And of course, as we've just heard from you, you've moved through this period with an extraordinary illumination of hope in your heart and joy in your soul about all of the great opportunities of collectivization that we're going to be moving through as we move back into the economic flow, which is obviously absolutely necessary for the productivity of creativity. In other words, all those things that people have been dreaming up are now going to be practicalized in 3D. What particularly would you like to see? If you were to introduce us to a theme today that has been burning through your consciousness, so that we can all sit up straight, everybody, and listen. Remember, welcome to all. There's some wonderful people who are all over the world tuning in, as you see. There's a wonderful lady called Helena Serafina, who is in the Pyrenees. Who is saying, thank you, thank you, thank you, in the sacred lands of Jeshua and Mary Magdalene. Indeed, how wonderful it is to be here to share Theo. So back to the themes that are coming forward at this time. What do you feel are going to be the main operatives?
The main operatives, and always have been with the Theo work, is really getting people in touch with how powerful they are. And that's through the integrational process. It's a process of really looking at our limiting beliefs, where they've come from, and changing them. And it's not reliving horrific events in our lives, but we get triggered. And those triggers, when we're emotionally triggered, there's a part of us, a fragmented aspect of our soul that's frozen in that moment in time when a belief was created or adopted about ourselves that are just simply untrue. And so when we have that revelatory moment of, now I know where this pattern comes from, the events won't change, and it's not going into the deep, dark hole of the emotions, but seeing it, recognizing it. You've already done the emotional part, but looking at the gifts and the blessings of that event that have made you the powerful person you are today, and how you can rewrite, reframe, redo, if you would, that belief to empower yourself to move forward and release that. It's like getting that part of self unfrozen in that moment and bringing it forward to the present, into your heart, where the seat of the soul is. And just that revelation of that moment can change everything. It's an amazing moment where, now I know where that is. And you can change it from, I'm not worthy, I'm not lovable, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not handsome enough, I don't speak well enough, I'm not educated. Whatever the not enoughnesses are that are held in those beliefs can be changed, because we're all magnificent beings.
Are you sitting up straight and listening, everybody? I hope so. I hope you're getting this wonderful, wonderful radiation that's coming through. I am enough, and I will always be enough to live the magnificence and the optimized nature of my creativity. I have a big quest. A big quest is that somebody that I worked with for 2 years, that I've already revealed to you, I've just written a book about, Diana, the Voice of Change, that there was a moment at her end where millions of people around the world breathed in and became frozen in that moment. And I believe that she has returned, she is with us in spirit, to encourage us all to the conviction and the courage of breathing out, so that we can once more step into a pathway of joy and therefore relive, fully live the optimization of what that creative trajectory is all about. Is there any particular skill, theme, or practice that you feel would be useful to the collective to allow them to breathe out? I've lost you again, Sheila. The volume is gone again. It's interesting ladies and gentlemen, as Sheila finds her audio, it's interesting that the volume cuts out. Here she is again. She's back at very particular points of frequency.
Somebody's muting me.
Yeah. Whenever we touch and there's a vibrational shift, your audio goes. It's very interesting.
Okay. Now say that again.
So this is a collective trajectory that's being sought, because in the production of this book, thousands and thousands and thousands of people come, mostly women, come and weep at the passing of Diana. And I feel that they're still held in the tumultuous shock of what that moment was all about, even though we know that it was actually a way of Shakti coming through and activating the human form to a position of greatness in the arousal of the divine feminine on our planet. But I wondered if Theo, or indeed yourself through the experience of Theo, had any particular theme or skill or resource that you could recommend I could evoke in the world to bring about this collective outbreath.
You know, isn't it interesting, at those periods of time in our history, we know those exact moments. I remember that moment, myself, as many do, just like when John Kennedy was killed, or you know, any of those horrific moments, but also transformative moments, as you were speaking of. In that moment, who am I now? And who am I to be past this moment? And in asking the self those questions, you know, we don't stop to ask ourselves the question. We get on the treadmill of life, and we don't notice what we're noticing about life. Am I reacting or responding? And most of the time we're reacting to situations, circumstances, and conditions. And so I would just encourage people to just notice what you're noticing about your life. Your life is constantly giving you messages and informing you. And pay attention to that. And when we're attentive to that, you know, Theo says, in every life is happening through us, not to us, and for us. So if that is true, we are creating life with every breath, with every thought, with every word. And so it's mindfulness. Notice what you're noticing the patterns that are repeating in your life. They can change. It just needs a pattern interrupt. So life is happening through you and for you. Remember that.
I love it. I love it. A huge moment of inspiration came to me, so I thank you very deeply for that, of the remembrance of who am I now in this moment, and who do I wish to be? Do I wish to be held by the tragedy, or do I wish to use the seeming tragedy as a means to become even closer to the spirit of Diana, and thereby closer to my own soul? I feel that's the great gift that she's giving us. Where are we? So rising more and more and more into the identity of what fifth dimensionality is all about. I wondered if you could possibly share with us even more of the rich information that Theo has imparted through you about the nature of fifth dimensionality, its purpose, its reality, and its immense essential significance.
The essential significance is that it's a tremendous shift of consciousness that human beings haven't experienced up until now. And what that means is recognizing that each and every one of us are significant now. Our souls came here purposefully to live now in this transformative time and to participate in it, not to be passive and stand by, but active in our own lives, in our own experience, in our own fuller expression of who we are. And saying yes to that life. Because those old patterns don't work. Whether they're political, whether they're spiritual, whether they're religious, whether they're educational, all of those things are changing as we speak. And why they're changing is we're changing. I'm going to use the word up-leveling. I don't like that hierarchical thing, but it's the only way I can describe what's happening energetically with us when we get more in tune with our soul than with our intellect. Instead of working from the mind, the intelligence, we've all been celebrated, and many of us, because our intelligence it's so great and exalted in many ways, that we've gone away from listening to our heart, to our soul, and only paying attention to the intellect. And the intellect is there to solve problems. So we tend to let it control us. Whereas if we listen to the small voice, to our soul voice, first and foremost, and we notice the intellect's trying to always control and take over and talk us out of what we might be feeling or knowing in that moment. But when we begin to listen more, our life will change. When we begin to have that soul note, which is unique only to us, our voice, as you know, Stewart, you're very much a technician of the voice. Each and every one of us has a particular note that's unique only to this soul. The soul note, Theo talks of it. But that's what we came here to sing. That part of us, that unique part of us, whatever we're going to do in life, nobody can do like you can do. You're the only one can do it the way you do it. And you came here to do it significantly. People ask all the time, what's my purpose? The purpose is you're alive. What's your passion? That's the expression of your soul on the planet energetically. So find your passion. We all know what it is. We're just afraid to reach it, to grasp it and say, this is mine. But you can do it.
Yes, and of course, the Western model, the cerebral model, has led us to the belief that there's one thing which is the purpose, which is where people get stuck. But, you know, it's so wonderful to hear what you're saying, because all of the teachings that I've received from the 12 since '87 are, there are many, many degrees to the fulfillment and the optimization of your creativity. The point is, what do you dream of creating? What is your passion? What is your greatest love? And so that you can create this and this and this and this rather than just one thing. In fact, it's actually not about the activity. It's really about the feeling that is engendered by the engaging with the activity. And as a result, we feel expanded and free. Of course, fifth dimensionality is also a suspension of the levels of weight, space, and time. And as a result of that, we begin to access the universal mind so much more easily. Do you feel that suddenly we will wake up one day to realize that Theo has been masquerading as 12 beings, whereas actually Theo is really thousands of beings?
I probably so. Probably so. We're ever expanding our awareness, aren't we? And they meet us at the level where we are and take us forward. You know, I talk to people, I can't go back even yesterday to be the person I was yesterday. That's what we're doing. once you've put your foot on this path and this exploration, you don't go back because you know too much. You have too much knowledge and you've experienced so many things. There's just no going back. Thank goodness.
Absolutely, absolutely. Sheila, there are some wonderful questions coming through on the chat box. I wonder if I may put one or two to you. Aaron Michael is talking about the fact that Edgar Casey suggested that the Jesus birth was a virgin birth. What does Theo feel about the virgin birth of Jesus?
You know, I don't know. I don't know if that exact question has ever been asked. To be a good question to ask, Stewart.
We have an interesting party asking this. Of course, this was really looking into the whole substance of the way that Edgar his consciousness was formulated around the substance of being a late 19th century individual who was channeling in the 30s. And so there was still an essential belief in the purity of a virgin birth. I feel that actually it's a metaphor rather than it's a literal. There was a conception that took place. There was lovemaking that took place. There was sexual intercourse that took place. But of course, what took place within her was a fusion of human with divine, because human is divine. And as a result of that, that's where the purity angle comes from. Let's look at another question. The crack of the Chinese cup, like the wound of trauma when filled with gold, becomes even more strong and magnificent. Thank you, Katie. Any questions? Yes, we know. I love. Anybody ask? No? Okay. Do ask any questions, ladies and gentlemen, and I will continue because I have lots and lots and lots of questions. The fullest love of Source is the highest vibration that we can reach. And I know that the flow of unity consciousness that Theo speaks of through you as an amazing channel is also aware of the constitution of contrast. And I wonder if you could just give us any points of illumination that you may personally have, or that indeed Theo has brought through you about the substance of contrast, because we know that we're living contrast. And when we look into the other remarkable person that I know you helped profoundly at the beginning of her channeling career, Esther, that Abraham is constantly speaking about contrasts. And, I feel it's a huge irony as we move into fifth dimensionality that I'm wanting us to recognize that contrast was a useful dimension that we were able to use in our past to understand how we could alchemicalize from negative into positive. And now what we need to do is to firmly embrace unity consciousness. Is there anything that Theo has said about contrast very specifically, why it's been useful?
Well, the contrast is useful because we couldn't know the good without the bad. Let's put it that way. We've come here to learn emotions, is what Theo says, and all of them, and we tend to avoid the ones that are uncomfortable. And when we become friends with all of them, they'll describe it like a rainbow and the different gradients of color. Well, you wouldn't take red out of the rainbow. You want to experience all those beautiful colors and the different gradients of color. Well, our emotions are like that. But we're afraid, we don't want to feel uncomfortable. The good ones we take for granted, and we shouldn't take them for granted either. But the contrast you're speaking about is the different levels at two ends, but then there's all those gradients in between that give us the texture of life. And that's what I believe that contrast gives us an opportunity to recognize how far we've come, who we are, all of those things, because the contrast gives us challenge. And where do we grow the most from is challenge. Theo says if we live alone, we can always be right, because there's nobody giving us a different perspective. So that one could call that contrast too, because nothing's there to stretch us or grow us. We can just stay in that lane of self-righteousness, if you would.
So dwell on that if you're living alone. It's been an interesting journey, I mean, if you told me 30 years ago that I would be spending 30 years living alone, I would have said, what? No way. But in fact, it has been so. And it's been a very interesting journey to get closer with the divine. How do we individually take up the fight with the darkness that is so aggressive right now? Well,
it's perception, isn't it? And is it a fight, really? It's good, bad, dark, light. There's just been this one or the other. It's both. And we're both inside of us. Theo says each one of us has a terrorist within us. I call it my evil twin sister sometimes comes out. We all have that in us of reaction and reactivity. What I'm finding, I'm getting to be more the observer of life and people and things and events than a reactor to it. Theo says you can tell the difference between judgment and observation. Observation is that moment of you're still peaceful inside and you look at something and go, well, isn't that interesting? What am I going to learn from that? As opposed to judgment, having an emotional connection to whatever's happening that's inside of us. So, fortunately, after all these years of study and experience, I'm getting to that observatory role of not really getting into seeing something that's happening. And a lot of stuff is happening in our world and has in this last year, rather than getting all emotionally charged about it. Not that I didn't have moments, I did, but just looking at it for what is this about? What's the gift in this that we're going to get from it? What's the blessing? Because there always is one. And I'm shifting my mindset to look for the blessings and gifts rather than, as we talked about, contrast, the agitation or dark as was the question. To, get those pearls. Get those pearls out of the oyster.
Beautiful. I would like to know about the twin flame pathway in terms of collective healing and the connection with the twin path. Are you a believer in the twin flame pathway?
Yes, and I'm not sure. We get these constructs in our mind, and then it becomes, the soulmate and the twin flame and and it's what I've come to know. I believe in it in an energetic form. And that we do have soulmates, but as Theo says, they're soul family. They're connected on a vibrational frequency to us. And we've romanticized it in such a way that we're not realizing that it's a vibrational frequency match that happens. Now the twin flame, in the sense of being an exact match with another, I believe I'm living that in my marriage right now because we're so similar. but it's the masculine and feminine coming together. But we have that inside of us as well. So we mirror that to each other in the sense of recognizing the new paradigm of relationship being that of preference rather than need, that needy point of someone else defining who we are. So I think that's where a lot of things get confused in that twin flame soulmate thing, from the old paradigm of need rather than being that whole person coming together with one who has become whole in themselves, like not the woundedness in one attracting the woundedness in another, with the expectation, I fix you, you fix me. That's an old paradigm. And so that's the change I see. So those labels get a little skewed. So it's kind of like, it's kind of like walk-ins too. Back in the 80s and the 70s, people, even said to me, "Oh, you're just a walk-in." After my near-death experience, my belief about that over these years, evolving with this energy and the teachings, is it's not a walk-in. It's just a different level of my soul that's come forth. That I have a realization of, and allowing all of this to happen through me. So it's not somebody else, it's just a bigger version of that soul.
Wow, what a fascinating time of listening to your wisdom pour forth. I want to thank you so deeply from the middle of my heart and the depths of my soul. Unfortunately, we've come to a point of needing to complete because our time has gone so quickly. And I feel that this latter point that you've made about the fact that we so easily get caught up in intellectual constructs, and we need to really go back to the very essence of what the heart is all about. And then suddenly all of the questions cease. The difficulty is that we've been so endorsed in the overworkings of the intellectual mind that it just takes a little bit of practice and a little bit of patience to just still ourselves, and hopefully live the extraordinary, in our own way, the extraordinary embodiment that you bring to your presence, your mighty persuasiveness about all of the issues that you brought, and the beautiful passion that just exudes from you. I mean, wouldn't you agree, everybody? Isn't Sheila so beautiful as she speaks? The whole of her beauty just shines forth. And you give us a wonderful sense of what our own aspirations need to be. So I want to say thank you so much. Namaste, namaste. And please, and thank you everybody for tuning in. I'm sorry, I know many of you have been asking questions that have suddenly there's a whole pouring out of questions. But we'll pick them up on another occasion. But before we go, please tune into asktheo.com, where all of Sheila's work is tabulated. There are some fascinating programs that she's going to be engaging in this fall, particularly in relation to demystifying the mystic. I think we may have done a little bit about that this evening. And please keep asking yourselves the question, who am I and whom do I wish to be, without getting caught up in any form of schizoid tendencies. So Sheila, please stay where you are. But Ryan, thank you so much. We'll close the line now. And namaste to everybody who's been tuning in.
Thank you. I'm grateful.